morning, Uka Eje.
Hi, good morning.
Welcome to this installment of Founder Spotlights with TechNest. Founder Spotlight is where we get to, spotlight founders and talk about what the beautiful innovation they are bringing to Africa and how that has been able to create accessibility, availability, affordability, and value to the common man. Because whatsoever you're doing, if it does not bring value to the common man that benefits, it's really not valuable. So looking at ThriveAgric, we see that ThriveAgric has been able to identify a major problem in the agricultural sector and is doing something wonderful. One of the major objectives of ThriveAgric is to create a network of profitable and productive farmers in Africa that Africa has never seen. But what I want to know is what is the process involved with the, how do you bring these farmers in? What's the process involved? How do you select these farmers? How do you get them involved in your platform?
Okay, first, I want to say thank you for having me. It's what we do first. I think I'll just define what we do at ThriveAgric. So it helps understand the process of getting farmers and the thinking around getting farmers. So at ThriveAgric, we're working with smallholder farmers to give them access to finance, to technology-based advisory, and access to markets. So the process of onboarding farmers, which we started doing actively in 2017, we work with community agents who are on the field, who are largely on contracts. We have over 1,800 of them. So these agents work with the farmers. They put the farmers in something called like a cluster. Look at it like a mini cooperative. And so this cooperative is what we use through the agent to administer loans, administer credits to farmers. So we don't give them cash. We give them loans in form of input financing. Okay. So these farmers, this cluster of farmers created and managed by the contract staff, they cross guarantee themselves, right? Because of the nature of the loans that we give. So and then we get update to build something called an agriculture operating system, AOS. So what the AOS does is it gives update of every activity of the farmer, from when the farmer is onboarded to farm mapping to the operation of the farmer end to end, all the operational activities, and down to when harvest starts. Right, so all input administered is captured via the agriculture operating system. That way we are able to get the progress of every of the farmer that is on our platform. So at the moment, we've been able to onboard over 500,000 smallholder farmers in Nigeria, and the process is quite rigorous. So we currently are present at about 2,700 communities, and again, as I said, the agents we work with are a critical part of our onboarding process of the entire operations. So we work with them to pretty much administer every of the services that we at ThriveAgric give.
You mentioned some few numbers. I just want you to explicitly give the numbers since launch. Your revenues, the number of farmers onboarded, and everything about the numbers.
Okay. I mean, we've done quite well growing so far. When we started working with farmers, when we started 2017, 2018, I think we were just working with about under 1,000 farmers. So I mean, this was on our test phase. And then we grew 2019. I think this was a period we were in both in Google Launchpad and Y Combinator. Scale was the objective for us at the time. So we were working with close to 5,000, and then at that point I think it was during 2019 we had crossed our 10,000 farmers. 2020 was some sort of decline for us, because of COVID. But however, the number of farmers we had on our platform had increased to about 50,000 farmers at the time. So in 2021, we wanted to nail the fundamentals for the business. So we slightly increased to about 120,000 farmers, but this was against the scale the momentum we were growing at. In 2020, we grew from 120,000 farmers, which in 2021 to at the end of 2020 to about 500,000 farmers, which is the figure we have at the moment. So how this number of farmers translates to revenue speaks with the business model. We charge an onboarding fee for every farmer onboarded in the platform who we are giving loans to, and we've been able to grow revenue about 50% on a year-on-year. So this is how it has been so far.
So in terms of coverage, what's the number? Like, how many states are you in now?
Okay, so at the moment we currently are in about 26 states in Nigeria, majorly northern states.
Majorly northern states. So that even leads me to the next question. So how was the representation of farmers from the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria?
Okay, so I would say that there are farmers everywhere in Nigeria, right? And our model is pretty unique because of our crop of focus. At the period where we were doing poultry, you'll notice that we were present in a lot more within the southwest region. We're present in Ibadan, we're present in Ondo, present in Ekiti, Ogun State, right? We had farmers within that because of our poultry operations. So at the moment, right now, we're majorly working with farmers who plant maize, rice, soybean, sorghum. So we are present within the northern regions where these crops are largely produced. So that speaks strongly, and then this represents about 26 states, and then further down the middle belt we have a very strong presence there, and also with Test France on projects in the Delta region and also Benin Delta region.
Okay, what would you say since launch has been the major challenge you faced, and how would you describe that challenge as a major challenge confronting the agricultural sector in Nigeria? Okay,
so I think one of the major problem is the problem around financing, or maybe I'll just say access to the right financing in agriculture. And I think, and before I speak a lot more about access to the right financing, I'll spend time to talk about the nature of the space itself. Agriculture in Africa is one major space that can revolutionize the economy of Africa, of every African country, and it has the highest potential. Africa has a vast millions and millions of arable land that is not tapped. And the reason why financing and the right type of financing is important is at the point where this is unlocked, we would be able to not only satisfy our need for sufficient food, but also export food to other countries, not just in Africa, but around the world, right? Africa has that potential, and then to be honest, until we are able to get the right, I'm not just saying finance, but the right type of finance, we would not be able to solve the problem. Now, just to give you context, when we started, we were, I and my co-founder wanted to buy soybeans. This was in Benue State, in a market called Wanuni Market. So I think there were about 5 trucks of soybeans that I wanted to buy. So it was difficult going to a financial institution to say, see, we needed cash, right? So they would have needed, there was no structure that we knew about at the time. I think this was about 2015, 2014, thereabout. and we decided to knock on the doors of friends we knew from school. So we spoke with them, and then they were kind enough, and as much as that was not the best, in quotes, kind of capital we could access, it was present enough to help us start something. To help us understand the model. So we created the WhatsApp group with the friends. We gave them updates of how it was going, and then that led to what ThriveAgric, a number of people used to know ThriveAgric as a crowdfunding platform then. So we went on to build a crowdfunding model, not just for planting. Notice that the people who were buying from were farmers who they wanted cash and wanted to be assured of the goods at the point of harvest. So we were able to harvest friends. We got into an accelerator called Ventures platform, and then we got access to some funding. And again, at the point, this was not patient enough capital. These were learnings we had moving on, and that speaks to access to the right kind of funding. And then to speak again about some of the challenges of agriculture is also the problem of technology. The agriculture, or maybe I'll just call it fragmentation. And I will explain that this way. This is a problem that technology can solve. You notice that there are many players who are everywhere, and I'll give the banks want to understand the industry enough for them to solve. Insurance company, the companies, they want to understand the industry enough for them to the banks want to understand enough for them to finance. So a lot of things are just scattered in bits, right? So and what technology can do here is to bring everyone in one space to be able to relate with themselves. The farmers need to have credit history enough for them to be financed. Most farmers are not in rural communities. They are not banked, and then they represent the bulk of the food. Almost 80% of what you and I eat today are from these rural farmers. And then guess what? They are not banked. So if the financial institutions want to bank the farmers, that problem of fragmentation, especially around the farmers, has to be solved, right? And there's also, as I said, insurance company that want to be able to relate with these people. So there's a lot of segment of it that is not available. That is exactly that.
Probably data also.
Exactly. So there's that issue. That needs to be solved, so that the core problems around, as I mentioned earlier, around financing can be properly solved for agriculture.
Okay. ThriveAgric, the company witnessed a turbulent period in 2020. That was the COVID-19 era, and I think the company was unable to pay probably investors and customers. They could not give out payouts. So I just want to know, how did the company come out of that turbulent period of?
Okay, so in 2019, one of the things that we were not immune to what the impact of the lockdown that happened because of COVID. And as a matter of fact, I think at that time we're still working with a lot of poultry farmers, as I said earlier, in the southwest. So these poultry farmers had, the expectation from us to them was to ensure that constantly we're giving them feeds, right? And we had invested a lot of money with these poultry farmers. I think we started the year at that time, at the first quarter, to say, we needed to work with over 1 million birds, right? And think about the amount of feeds that needs to go to these poultry farmers. So because of the lockdown at the time, we noticed that it was difficult moving this feed. Not difficult, it was slow, right? Sometimes we estimated in less than 24 to 48 hours maximum. So in some facilities that we had farmers, it was taking about a week. And because these were broiler beds, it took a long time. I mean, they couldn't withstand that time.
The delay.
Yeah, they couldn't withstand the delay. So some of them were dying. I mean, it took. I mean, for the ones that survived, and because of the nature of our operation, was not in such a way that the farmers could afford to get cold storage facility, because they expected at the point where the birds were mature, would take them off, right? So now, because of the lockdown, they didn't have facilities, so most of the birds were dying. So the ones that survived, so see it like 35% to 40% died because of food. Then the remaining 60% that survived, moving them from the pen to the people who wanted them was another challenge. So it took a while for the cold trucks to, because people were still eating food, right? Because people were asking me, but price of chicken was going up. Yeah, but it's true. But the thing is, supply chain was also a problem, right? Because if you cannot move food, it will be a problem, right? And then for us, that was a major problem we needed to solve, and we couldn't solve that on time. And so for the amount of beds we were able to move to these off-takers, it took them a long time. So I'm talking about three problems: moving feeds to the farmers, and because of that, some birds died. So the time it took for the birds to leave the pens to the off-takers was another problem, and that was another death on its own, right? And then the time it took the off-takers to pay us. So, and it was now difficult for. I mean, it was a difficult period.
Yeah.
It's tough to. I think maybe I need to write a book about that experience. Yeah, we can laugh now, but then
it was not laughing. I understand.
It was how we man. In fact, we were all living in the office together. Myself, my co-founder, and a few of my colleagues. They did fantastic. I think I really need to thank them for that. Trying to receive calls and respond to a number of aggrieved investors. When we were crowdfunding at the time, it was really a moment. I think that's the best choice of word. And so we were able to, and then thankfully, before we're in 2019, this to answer how we came out.
Yeah.
Right, 2019, we had identified that because of the acceleration program we went for, that we quickly identified that the source of capital we were working with was not the best. We needed patient investment. So thankfully, we were able to switch investment for that. So, and second, we also had to hire a number of people to our team. To be able to, first we got patient capital. Second, we had to increase the size of our team to be able to cover issues around risk in the event that, God forbid, another COVID incident happens again, or COVID-like incidents happens again. We had to get a solid financial team to be able to help in terms of access to finance. Got a corporate finance team also for fundraising and the likes. So that prepared us for alternative source of investment, and helped us to raise funds, not only from retail investors, but for a lot more institutional investors. So, and again, one beautiful thing we did was to start having conversations with some off-takers to tell them that, see, they could pay us ahead of time, and then we would discount how much they were going to, we discount the market price if they pay us ahead of time. So I won't say one thing helped us to come out of it. So a number of reasons. So we were able to get some patient debt. I think this was when this was the period when all of this was happening at the same time, to calm the people who were the retail investors that we were speaking with. So a number of these things happened at the same time and helped us to control and to solve the turbulent time. So we ended 2020 in a huge loss, obviously. So 2021 was an intense year. The goal for the entire company was not just, we named it Project Nail the Fundamentals, right? So we had to sit down to ask ourselves difficult questions like, do we want to, if it's time to leave this business, this is the right time to leave. Honestly,
now that you've come out of it.
Exactly. This is the right time to leave. We had to ask ourselves. I can remember when myself and my co-founder were in the conference room and said, bro, see, we've paid everyone. We can say, let's wash our hands and leave. Yeah. But we had to remind ourselves why we started, right? And the reason why we started was because we believe that the problem we faced is a problem that as I mentioned, how fragmented agriculture is, right? We believe that technology could solve. And then when I say technology, I don't mean technology by crowdfunding, going to a website. No. I meant technology in terms of automating the entire agricultural process and giving visibility. Now I mentioned that farmers don't have credit history. We saw, the problem we faced because of COVID opened our eyes. It took a while for us to be thankful that we went through that period. And it also took a lot of boldness to say, bro, let's go for the long term. Right? We spoke, as I said, it was a hard decision. Yeah. Right? But we decided that there was a lot of potential in the agriculture space, and we thought we were the best to solve that problem, and we stayed true to that commitment till today.
Beautiful. That sort of just gives a proper picture to what happened that period and how everything transpired. I think that was the same period where you decided to step back a bit, and then you put it out that you were stepping down as the CEO. And then, what I want to know is what was the specific arrangements the management made with Adia Sowo to come in the interim role as the CEO, and what are the concerns that something like that, or someone or she is still going to come in case of something like that coming up, like you mentioned, probably a crisis coming up later on? What's the concern for you that someone is the investors that are going to bring someone to take charge of this company? What's the concern for you, and what was the specific arrangement made with Adia Sowo at that period?
Okay, thank you for that question. First I would say Adia did a fantastic job. And then I'll speak to fantastic job because a lot of when I was speaking, quite a number of people were involved, and then I would say really Adia was a phenomenal part of many of the things that led to what success was like. So at that period, it was pretty difficult to manage the narrative we were giving, because there was a lot of how do you call it now, mistrust for the system at the time, or distrust for the system at the time. So we wanted, and then for the kind of funds we were trying to raise, we wanted someone who was trusted in the system, the ecosystem, and then Adia was Adia. I mean, it was interesting that when she came, she looked at the books and noticed that these guys are actually not what they were represented to be. In fact, I think I remember when she came to our conference room and noticed that the office does not look as fancy. You're not driving a G-Wagon or a Range. We didn't have a car, right? So, and then beyond that, she noticed how lean we were working, and noticed that many of the reasons for the problem that happened was some operational issues that we needed to solve. And again, working with her made us to understand, during that period, understand that the kind of funds we needed for agriculture was not that kind of fund. I told you, it buttressed that point. From 2019, we had always known, and we needed that positioning. And while Adia was the CEO, and I stepped back a bit to be the COO. Okay. My goal was to pretty much handle the operational elements of the business at the time, right? In terms of how do we ensure that we structure the finance of the business? How do we ensure that the off-takers we're working with, as I mentioned before, they paid at the right time. They paid at the right time. Working with all of the vice presidents that we had hired at the time. So again, what Adia did was to ensure that we had put the company in the light. I think she had spent about 3 months to put the company in the light that it's supposed to be put to the retail investors to trust that their money was going to be paid. And thankfully, it was paid at the time where we had promised. So I really am grateful to her and not just to her alone, but everyone who was a part of helping that success happen.
So what I specifically want to know is she still acting in that role? And what are your concerns that possibly your current investors are going to want to bring in someone in case something of such happens again, like a crisis, or let's say something like the COVID happens again? What are your concerns about that? Okay,
good question. So Adia is not currently in the role anymore.
Okay.
So she was hired to come work with us in that capacity at the time because it needed. I think there's something they call it in the just in the military. so I mean, this was something that myself and it was a decision myself and my co-founder Ayo made, and I think it was noble because we had to identify our strengths and our weaknesses. At this point, we needed so and so and so kind of help, right? And we had to accept it, that this is a challenge that someone external is in the best position to solve, right? And then we are asked questions: who is in the best place to solve this? Why we focus on to be fair, the agriculture industry, few people understand it as much, but when it comes to strategy, right, quite a number of people understand how to handle investors. I mean, that's where we perform poorly. choosing the right investors. As I say, that's where we perform poorly. So your second question on what concerns can investors have in the future. So the beautiful thing about running a company is that you face challenges.
Definitely, every day.
Right. COVID is just one of the challenges. And COVID is just one of the many challenges we faced. So, and I'll tell you for free that aside COVID, we face bigger challenges.
Wow.
So that's what you know. So the investors we work with are fine, right? So, and because they understand how businesses run, I mean, we are careful to select the right investors, and I mean to work with us, right? Again, as I said, COVID is just one of the numerous challenges that many companies have even faced after 2020, and we are not an exception, right? So, speaking to what concern that they might have, I think that many of the ones we're working with, they trust the team. We've really built. What matters right now is that we've really built a very, very robust team, and it's on the basis of the trust that they have for what we've built and the learnings we've gotten from COVID, and the openness of the team to want to change and to be better, to also reinvent itself. And it's a confidence, and I won't say that's a concern. It's a confidence that many of the people we work with, investors alike, they have for us.
Yeah, talking about investors, I mean, this period we know it's the rainy season, and there are flood concerns right now in every part of the country. As rainy season, we all know that the Nigerian soil is susceptible to flooding, anytime from now. So that builds me to my next question: what has the management done, or what are you doing to assure investors that the returns on their investment are not going to be affected if there are cases like floodings or destruction of farmers crops and all that? So what is the assurance you've given to investors on that?
Okay, so I think I'll answer that question by running through our model of farmer onboarding, right? I think I need to spend time talking about that. We don't just go in and do. Look, are you a farmer? Awesome. Come and collect fertilizer. Come and collect seed. That's not what we do, right? We're like, amazing. You're a farmer, right? We want to see your farm.
Okay.
Right. And then when we go to see, I mentioned the AOS, Agricultural Operating System, Agricultural Operating System. So we map the farm. Okay. And part of mapping the farm, we're checking the coordinates, we're checking the geometry around, we're checking is it susceptible to flood. And for your information, many of the lands that are susceptible to flooding, they are to a 15 to 20%. You can predict. Because of the plane, right? You can tell when. You can tell or how far is a river from here. What distance can what's it called? If flood happens, what distance is the farm to the river, right? And then that intelligence helps us to know, should we onboard this farmer or should we not onboard this farmer, right? We don't just go ahead brashly to bring in farmers. That's one. Two, we do a community, like a cluster model. We don't just give one farmer. For instance, I think I'll call it the community lending, where a group of 20 farmers together will lend them, right? So beyond the farm mapping, and all of these farmers that we lend are all onboarded in the Agricultural Operating System, the AOS. So in the event that there is, in quotes, the question you asked, flooding, right? It's impossible that flooding can happen for every one of them.
Definitely.
the chances that happens is very low. So these are mitigation strategies that we use, right? And even if it happens, let's say one defaults in payment, right? The other people pay for the rest, the other components of the team, right? So or as I said initially, they cross guarantee themselves, right? So that ensures that the
funds are secure.
The funds are secure, and the institutional investors get the return for their money back.
And I was even going to ask you, what are the provisions made for these farmers in cases of flooding? You understand?
Okay. One of the things we do. Okay, so first, as I said, we try to ensure that we don't onboard farmers who have whose farm,
but
right?
then you can't predict.
Yeah. So for the ones who have incidences of that, right? Okay, there were cases where we had to advise. We didn't just push away those farmers who we can't onboard, because there was a farmer who did brilliantly the previous year, and we noticed that the next year during the new onboarding, I think he had done about 50 bags of soya beans, right? And that's about 5 hectares from his farm size. And then that was fantastic. The next year we noticed that, if we work with this guy, there's a chance that something can happen, right? And he was in a group, so we had to advise that he get a farmland close by within a region that was less prone to incidences around flood. So these are the kind of advisory we give, right? So we give advisory to be able to cover for issues like this that can happen. And we've been able to see, as I said, the reason ThriveAgric exists is to give farmers access to finance, access to technology-based advisory, and access to markets.
Okay, let's go to the very last question. I believe we've done justice to all the questions that we've asked so far. What is ThriveAgric looking to do differently that it has done in the past few months?
So, I think in the past couple of months, right? One of the things we have struggled to tell, I would say, the world is it's possible to scale agriculture by automating the entire process, and it's the same thinking that the likes of Elon Musk can wake up to say, look, people can go to Mars, like a tourism journey, right, or to the moon. And as much as it sounds huge, right, and as much as agriculture requires a lot of infrastructure, there are some elements of agriculture that we currently have here and here, bits and bits infrastructure that we can leverage. And so one of the things that we are working to do is we've been able to we want to be able to push what we are working, which is the agriculture operating system, the AOS, such that members of agriculture, by members I mean key stakeholders, the farmers, the financing house to see possibilities in financing, traders, that's aggregators, insurance companies, what's it called, health organization, edutech companies as well, can be able to offer services to the farmers, right? Because at the base of it, the farmers are human beings, right, and have human needs like every one of us. So because if I tell you that 70% of the food you eat comes from a farmer, then that data is massive for that population of people to be neglected.
Definitely.
All right. So and then what we are trying to do is to ensure that we we ensure that crop of stakeholders can relate with themselves. This is the reason why the AOS was built. Think of the AOS like how Microsoft built the Microsoft operating system, right? For you to do a lot of things, right? A lot of documentation, right? With Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, right? And has solved critical problems in that field. So this is how the AOS is built to solve critical agricultural problems, so that we can not only build an Africa, build in Nigeria alone for food security, but build an Africa that feeds the world, feed herself and the world.
Wow, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time. Coming to this interview to share your thoughts on what ThriveAgric has been up to in the past few years and months. What I normally say as an economist, because I study economics, what I normally say is continues to be one of the greatest sectors and one of the biggest sectors in Nigeria. And once Africa and Nigeria can recognize that, and first of all attain food security, attain that point where it's sufficient to produce what it needs, and can then produce what other people need. It has attained a point of power. It's no longer dependent on others to feed. Once you can control what comes into you, you can control what comes into you.
Correct.
So I believe ThriveAgric is playing an important part in this attainment of security.
Thank you.
So that's the end. We've pretty much come to the end of the interview.
Thank you.
Once again, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you. I'm glad. Thank you.